Marcy McDonald, the online course doctor, here to help you improve your online courses by unpacking what works, what doesn't, and what you can do to make them better. Today, we're continuing my interview series with nationally known gardening expert, Melinda Myers. Now, Melinda is an experienced TV and radio host, the author of more than 20 gardening books, and a syndicated columnist. She does a ton of public speaking, talking at flower shows, master gardener events, and home and garden shows across the country. In other words, she is one busy and knowledgeable woman. Now, thanks to a master's degree in horticulture and more than 30 years of experience, Melinda not only knows her tubers from her bulbs, she also helps instill confidence in gardening newbies while inspiring those who have mulched their fair share of garden beds. She admits that she's killed a few plants along the way, but she always knows why they died and how you can keep the same thing from happening. Well, Melinda and I worked together on a series of courses, How to Grow Anything, that required planning and shooting over an entire year to give gardeners a complete view of how to plan, plant, replant. It was quite the effort. We shot out in the field as well as in the studio. So we're going to be able to cover a lot of ground here, about teaching in challenging circumstances, because believe me, we had some very difficult days. The end products were absolutely worth it though, and it was a real joy to work with her. So, hey Melinda, welcome. It's great to see you again.
Always great to see you, Marcy, and bring back those wonderful memories of our experience, creating those How to Grow Anything in good weather and not so good weather. But as you mentioned, the end results were great. And I still hear from students throughout the year and from year to year about how it's helped them be better gardeners and have more fun as they're growing new plants or just improving their skill in their vegetables or with their trees and shrubs.
Oh, that's lovely to hear, Melinda. That's so rewarding, isn't it?
It is.
Well, let's start off by talking about some of the challenges in recording outside. For people who are recording in the field, do you have any tips about how to pull it off so it looks professional? What do they need to be aware of ahead of time and during the shoot? And you might happen to have a story or two around this.
Well, as you remember, I'm based in Wisconsin, but we did the first two of the series in Virginia, and I was told, oh, it'll be warmer in the spring, the weather will be great, and I didn't come as prepared as I should, and in fact, I think I had to borrow some of your long underwear just to get through the first couple shoots.
We indeed shared long underwear, not at the same time, and I had a roaring fire going for you at all times, and a hot toddy waiting in the wings.
Exactly, so it helped make that end really appealing. But those are some of the things to consider, and I apologize for my cat running through the screen here. Weather, be prepared. Wind is very difficult with microphones, wind blowing your hair and all your props, which sounds a little vain perhaps, but when your hair's standing on end, nobody hears what you're saying. They're looking at your hair going, does she know how bad she looks? Listen for noise. When we scout out a location, we try to look for places that tend to be quiet. Now, granted, they may tear up the road the day before you start shooting, but try to minimize those distractions, and then have somebody, if possible, look at that scene with you in it. Or if you're shooting your own, take a look through the camera. Where you're standing, will a pole be coming out of your head? Will the background, kind of like my office, be more distracting than the message you're trying to purvey? And will you be able to see all of the props and the action that you're trying to portray in your video?
Those are all good tips. A lot of people forget about the background because they're so focused on just delivering. And in fact, I did a series on making sure your background is good. And I noticed that even though we're behind the scenes, your background has been spiffed up a little bit since the last time I saw you.
Exactly. I thought I'd cover up some of those piles of mess. Now, the cat is one thing. The closed door didn't keep him out, so I apologize for the appearance of my cat here.
That's okay. A lot of my videos have my dog barking in the background.
Okay, good.
Well, one thing we haven't really covered in this series so far of interviews is the idea of planning out a series as opposed to having a standalone course. So do you think it's a good idea to plan ahead this way? Are there any downfalls to it? And what tips do you have to make it work to your advantage?
Well, I think one of the benefits is it gives you an opportunity to create more courses. So you can have that introductory course that's really helpful in terms of laying out the groundwork for for your video, but then being able to have more in-depth information on different areas. So it gives you more opportunities. I also think it allows you to provide just enough information so you don't overwhelm your students, that you can provide clear and detailed information that's useful, and then hopefully spark that interest so they want to learn more. I remember when we started with the How to Grow Anything series, it was going to be 34 classes, and then it went to 24, and then I remember the call when you said, well, we're going to 6, Melinda. My heart stopped for a moment, but then you explained that this would allow us to do exactly that. Give the basics in one class. So people that just want a little information and that's it, is to manage their landscape, they'd be good. But we also, I think, invited them to learn more in the other series. So I think it was a great way to meet the needs of a variety of students who had different learning goals, and it gave us more opportunities to reach more people than on focused areas. So maybe we didn't get them on the first one, but we got them with containers. Or maybe we had someone interested in growing their own food, they got excited, and then they wanted to learn more about trees and shrubs. So I think it helps you have more opportunities. And if this is part of your stream of income, it is for me as a small business owner, it allows me to have more opportunities to reach people and build my audience.
Right. I think it's a really successful strategy for you, but also for other people out there to think in terms of the long run. Give us the foundation and then build on that, and your students will be coming along with you. They'll never feel that sense of overwhelm that happens with so many online courses. They'll get things done and feel better.
And our attention span these days is pretty limited. And so I think that also is very valuable, that we take advantage of that by giving them something they could walk away, feel satisfied, but also wanting more.
I think that's a really good point to add. Thank you. So how do you adjust your content when you're teaching a recorded course versus teaching a workshop, which I know you do many of? And do you think there are advantages in teaching a recorded course as opposed to a workshop?
I think with online, you definitely need to be organized, because you don't want to waste time hemming and hawing or looking for a prop or doing something. You have a little more flexibility in class. You should always be organized, no doubt about it. But I think it's even more important with a video. Plus, you need to make sure your message is clear, because you don't have that feedback from your students. You can't see their faces. You don't know if they've heard and understood what you're saying. So it's really important, I think, to do even more preparation and organization online than you do in your classroom. The benefit of online is you have this course that lives for as long as you choose to leave it available. So one preparation, one lecture, and that can reach people all over the world, and it lives on the web, so then it's available over and over. So you prepare once and you can then benefit financially and also as a teacher and educate a wide range of people with that one effort. And so I think that's the benefit. The downside is you don't have that personal contact with your students, so you have to rely on imagining what they're seeing, imagining they're smiling at you and having a great time, and then going back to your other courses you've done in person and knowing what works and what doesn't.
Right, really good point, to remember what happens in the in-person class, but then bring that into the studio and just kind of fake it.
Right. Sometimes look at the camera as if it's the person or the person behind the camera. Granted, they're worrying about other things than what you're saying, but if it's not you running the camera, if there's someone actually behind it, then that's at least a person you can look at and relate to, and that might be helpful as well.
Right, right. Of course, when you're filming on your laptop, then you're just talking to yourself, but you're a good listener too, so it's okay.
Exactly.
Now, with you, we found that a full script didn't really work as well as an outline when we were on the teleprompter, and also outside we used notes on a board. So can you talk a little bit about figuring out what worked best for you and how the process is different from in the studio versus outside, and also how you normally teach, which is just using prompts and no notes?
You bet. So one of the things for me that works well are outlines. Props are my outlines. When I'm doing a demonstration or out in the field showing how to plant something, how to transplant, how to grow or harvest, that's my outline. So I set up all my props, my tools, so that I walk through the process, and it's a reminder to me of what to do, and it helps me with the order. In the classroom, a lot of people use computers and PowerPoint. You may even do that in your webinar. And so those visuals are your prompts when you're in a classroom, but when you're in the field, one, it's hard to see a prompter, even if you had a teleprompter, because of the light and the size of the font. For me, it never works. Plus, you're doing something. So how do you read that while you're doing something without looking like you're reading? I think it's finding your style. As you mentioned, the script didn't work for me. I'm a very casual teacher. That's my style. And I think you have to do what works best for you. So if you need that script, you definitely want to do that. And then if you're going out in the field or demoing, you need to practice and think of your props or the layout as your script. And I like the 2-column strategy that you use. That was something new for me because I'm used to working alone or with a crew that I have to do all of that work. And it was so nice to have you who could manage the content I was providing, making sure I was on target and unfolding so it was understandable. So maybe describing that 2-column format would be great.
Oh, well, thank you, Ms. Interviewer. So what Melinda is referring to is that she would write out her outline and her notes and make a list of all her props. But then what we did was to pour it into a 2-column script. So literally 2 columns. And I'll actually, in my link to sign up for gorgeous tips from me, I'll include a free sample of a 2-column script today. On the left side, you put all your notes about what props you'll be using, what sound effects, any other visuals, anything you need. For instance, we might have a slide of flowers through different seasons that we wanted to run through very quickly. That would be on the left, and on the right would be Melinda's main talking points. And that way, before, as we were planning it, we could get a solid list of props, which I really recommend.
Yes.
So you can check everything off and be ready. And then you would have it ready when you were going through each segment. And we divided everything into scenes. So we didn't try to do too much at once. This is a point a lot of people overlook. They try to just run through thinking it's from start to finish for the entire half hour or whatever it is. But we divided it into logical scenes. What are the props for each scene? And then we would have a break so that you could get your mind ready for the next segment too. And so then it also helped with editing.
And it was because we had a crew of people, so that made sure everybody was on the same page. But if you're working by yourself, it's very important. I've really, over the years, have realized I need to organize the day before, and that avoids any problems. I make sure I have the right pruner, the right tool, the TV-worthy shovel versus the one I use every day in my garden, that I have all the materials, and then I can recheck them the next day. That way, by the time I get to the studio or I'm out in the field shooting, I know I have everything. I've done a few, I did some videos for a website where I had to shoot 20 different videos in a very short time, and I boxed up every prop and labeled them. And that way, box 1 came out, we could set up, it's kind of like your scene idea. And we did that in the hallways. There was scene 1 props, there were scene 2 props, there was scene 3. And so if you have to do it yourself, laying that out so it's easily accessible and convenient. And then you can grab the first scene, do that, take the break, as Marcy mentioned, and then bring in the next set of props. And that works very well. A little more cumbersome than a PowerPoint on a computer, but it's a lot more fun and visually very effective, and a great way to use video to help get your message across quickly and effectively.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing you've mentioned previously in one of our conversations was that when you're in a workshop, obviously people can just gather all around you, but when you're working, whether it's in the studio or outside, you have to plan ahead for those views. Can you address that a little bit?
You bet. So when you're doing something, for example, for me, it's in the garden and I'm digging and I may have to switch legs, or I may have to use my left hand to prune versus my right hand so that the camera can see that action and my hand and my body aren't in the way, or the shadow of my hand or my body aren't in the way. And so that's where you need to practice the camera view. Again, looking through the camera before you get on set. And if you have somebody that's willing to help you, maybe it's a student from the local technical college that's doing an internship, maybe just getting someone that can help you get those views initially to get used to working for the camera. You know, if you've got a big group of people and they can't see, they're going to tell you. But unfortunately, if you're not aware, by the time you finish the video and you start editing, it may be too late to go back and fix it. The other thing is, if you have someone, or as you edit, make sure the message you're trying to tell is evident. Sometimes we do actions, we know what they mean, but they don't align with our message clearly. And so you want to make sure that the action really supports the message.
Right, that's a great point. And as you're delivering, you're really focused on making sure that you're delivering great content and teaching with enthusiasm and really talking to people. And that's why it's also so important, even if you're a one-woman or one-man operation, to get someone helping you on the day of recording so that you can walk through what it is you need to do. Block it out, practice it, looking through the camera, or even if it's just your laptop, checking to make sure you're in frame so that you can focus on that really very important part. And we don't have, as I've seen in many videos, the key action where we say, look at this, but the hands are off screen.
Yes, and that's what people are going to remember. They are not going to remember the lesson you're trying to teach. So good point. And there are usually people that are willing to help you. And a lot of people find it fun and interesting. And maybe you have someone else teaching a similar topic or a different topic. You both want to do online videos. This is a great way to help each other. I'll help you produce, you help me produce. We'll switch off. And it's a good way to learn, because one of the best ways to learn about how to teach, how to do online videos, is watching them. What do you like? What would work for you? What really is annoying? And what do you want to avoid? Like you said, the message is below the screen. Nobody can see it. It's kind of wasted effort.
Really great tips there. Thank you. So before we close out, are there any words of wisdom you want to add to folks who are thinking about making online courses or already making them?
Just do it. Get started. It's the best way to do it. If you wait for the perfect moment, it will never happen. Watch yourself. I know how hard it is. It still is hard for me to watch myself when I do video or TV. We see all the flaws, but try to look beyond that and see what you can do to improve your message. Practice, practice, practice. When you teach a class in person, you've probably spent a lot of time preparing for that. That's a good rehearsal for doing online, but practice again to make sure that you're ready. Not only do you have your materials in place, but your message, because you do have a lot to think about. And if you forget about the camera, that's great from one standpoint, because then you're natural in yourself. But then you may forget the importance of having that camera being your audience and taking in what you need for your audience to see. And so if you can get help, I was lucky to work with Marcy. She did a great job of helping us unfold content, helping to create something different than I had done in the past. I taught online, I did distance education, I had a live class, I do TV and radio. But this was an opportunity to stretch my wings a bit and try something different that really required some long-term thinking and doing things a bit differently. And it's helped me do a better job in the videos I do now because of that experience.
Well, that's great. Great advice too. Thanks so much, Melinda, for joining me today. Friends, be sure to check below the video for links to Melinda's website and to her wonderful courses. And don't forget to sign up for weekly insights and tips from me that only my subscribers get. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.